You're about to enter into Monika's universe, where her inquiry may align you to new dimensions. You're about to cross a threshold into the unknown. Surrender to the experience. The shape of the space I did not know I needed. Why mathematics gives you hope. What happens when you leave space for yourself? You don't do it in just one day, that you cross off the calendar and cancel your appointments. So you decide to go out for a walk and keep walking the whole day without caring about the things that you're leaving behind. No, I mean something more profound than that. What happens if you take time and space for what that part of yourself that you didn't even know it needed that space? It needed that time. What happens? Something marvelous happens. It feels like the space was there when I stopped rushing for my phone so I could check on people I care about, sending them things. I was not engaged with that anymore. I decided to disengage completely from my caring side to see what would happen to Monika when she's not holding space for others and allows her own space to speak. Over the last year, this happened to me, and I was finally integrating it. And it's such a beautiful feeling that I'm at a loss for words. Although I need those words because I'm finally putting together the whole process that went from me walking and talking to myself, realizing I had a structure that I wanted to follow. Then I allowed that structure to form a kind of spine. And as that spine was forming, it was allowing, breathing, and shaping itself, slowly receiving the flow that needed to create that space, from occupation to beautiful self-caring silence. Quote, number is therefore the most primitive element of order in the human mind. Carl Jung, The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious. End of quote. Today is April 8th, 1 year since Bitcoin's price touched the bottom after that previous all-time high in December 2024. It gave a different tension to the chart, and I'm in a deep realization and a state of wonderment. What happened in these 365 days? A year ago, I was tracking Venus retrograde, not just my personal chart, but also financially. And I noticed something that W.D. Gann also worked with when he brought mathematics and astrology into financial graphs. From there, price moved again towards the all-time high until October 2025. This is what led me to start seriously looking at financial charts, harmonics, and monitoring the wavelength as a way to also track my nervous system. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what it is. I'm enjoying the contrast that outside reflects with the inside. I'm not a psycho, as I have really focused more on all my infinite possibilities. Someone who has inspired me in the last year is Professor Edward Frankel. I'm dropping below his latest video. Math gives us hope for the future. Every time I listen to him and hear his soft voice with his beautiful Russian accent and his sparkling eyes, he just looks like a little boy in a playground when he speaks about mathematics. It gives me so much hope. It moves me. This week, if you want it, brings lightness while the heaviness outside makes no sense. One bluff after the next. Nothing feels real, but I'm counter-offering the idea of becoming light as a feather. There's also light, hope, a different quality of life. It's there all for you. All you have to do is align to that frequency and start embodying it. One of the most inspiring, beautiful things in this video, Frankel says, the fact that we all perceive mathematics in the same way means that our minds are connected, and so we're all connected to each other. And to say to Professor Edward Frankel that I did not do well in school with mathematics. Maybe because I could not find a point of entry and it led me to close myself to it. I was trying to understand them from a very logical side, but I couldn't tap into them. I fail them every year. Even though my mind operates in patterns, the way I was taught just didn't compute. I've been using mathematics in the last 10 years pretty much every day when I practice astrology. If you see the first part of the word, is the stars part, and the logos is the part where it makes sense. Astrology is based on numbers. It's based on the positions of the stars in the sky and the relationships between them. We have to use mathematics, we have to use geometry and harmonics to understand these relationships that validate themselves with the cycles of these celestial bodies, which is what we call astronomy. Guess what this four form? The quadrivium, the four ways, defined as the four mathematical sciences: arithmetic, number in itself; geometry, number in space; music, number in time; and astronomy, number in space and time. These subjects were considered to be the preparatory study for philosophy and theology, and later in the medieval universities as a way to understand the created order, as scholars believe that the universe was constructed according to geometric and harmonic principles. Quote, "The universe is not a collection of things, but a system of relationship," which is pretty much what Poincaré said. Then Rudyard, The Astrology of Personality, end of quote. Of course, there's another layer that comes from what Jung called the unconscious and the archetypal forms that we have been attached to these relationships and phases. The interesting thing for me is that I learn about mathematics through harmonics and through geometry, and I have such a profound love for Pythagoras as well, and for what he brought to the world. Lately, I have found true love for Gurdjieff, because through his teachings, I've been able to understand how to apply mathematics in my life. The opportunities of certain aspects create a space for me to be able to break free from conditions that I thought were static and were already stagnating. These intervals that happen in music and in nature are the place where I tap into applied mathematics and applied psychology. In my offerings, you will find different ways that I have arrived at applying mathematics. For example, Bitcoin. It became a way to understand scarcity and its finite quality and to feel what that actually means in real terms of value and self-esteem as it relates to our essential needs. Have you noticed in the last few weeks that you've been renegotiating the way you relate to the world and your values? And you tap into the Uranian energy in Taurus at the last degrees, where these resources suddenly make you realize that if you don't stand for your value, nobody else will. I'll guide you into the same electric curiosity and luminous clarity in your life, your chart, and how to make economic decisions. Everything I'm sharing comes from this same process of creating space, while fully understanding structure as I'm able to move with it instead of feeling trapped by it. From failing in maths class to actually living through logic. Aristotle knew that you cannot build a life on assumptions, and you have to find that fundamental substance, that primal beginning where a thing is simply itself and A cannot be not A if you want to stop the chaos and finally see the gap. As he writes in the Metaphysics book number 4, the same attribute cannot at the same time belong and not belong to the same subject in the same respect. This is how the Greeks called the first principles, archi. The behavior in society is what he called politia, which is the origin of the term politics. Now, it is very fundamental to understand that without individual responsibility, any civilization can be out of alignment because politics is the behavior of the collective. And that individual action is what Ludwig von Mises called human action. You see, they are interwoven. No self-responsibility leads to a society that acts with degeneracy and gets easily corrupted. No matter how much moralistic views abound, if integrity doesn't stand well on first principles. Therefore, for me, it is necessary that we have a solid foundation to find new ways to connect, to be eloquent, and to behave more civilized. I'm a very emotional person that has worked for years, and I have learned to stay with my emotions long enough to channel them into a response. I take time to respond because I have an emotional authority. What happened since I started studying praxeology a few years back is that it gave me the option to look at opportunity cost as the most important decision I make in every moment, shaping the outcomes I experience. Human action is a fundamental state of awareness rooted in logic. If I don't start with the fundamental truth with first principles during dialogues or argumentation, while I stay within the logic, everything flows. If I engage emotionally, things turn to chaos. Arhi, first principles, can lead to prosperity. Quote, Mars, the ruler of Aries, enters its home sign today and it will be disposing Saturn, Neptune, the Sun, and Chiron. Meanwhile, Mercury exits its shadow in Pisces and meets them next week. The energy is at its peak. Let's fucking go. There's something very real happening right now with how fast everything is moving, especially financially. It matters to me that you have access to understanding it and moving through it with clarity. I created a self-study Bitcoin course for $88. If you feel you want support, I can onboard you and guide you through it one-to-one, and that full experience is $333. You can begin with the 88 and within 30 days, move into the rest. And we will have a number of calls where I support you directly. At the same time, I'm offering the Evolutionary Astrology Foundation course. This one is very important to me because it is based entirely on the work and direct transmissions of Jeffrey Wolf Green and Mark Jones, who I've been working with closely over the last year and a half as a therapist and astrologer. I decided to teach it exactly as it was transmitted by Simon Foster to me because it's so well done that it stands on its own. It is pre-recorded so you can move through it at your own rhythm. And if you want to engage with me, you can also work one-on-one. The recordings on their own are $333, and the full experience with me guiding you, working through the charts together, and supporting you applying everything. That is $1,080. By the end, you can read the main theme of the chart, yours or any others. I'm also opening a new cohort as a human design study group, which is much more of an embodied space. We meet twice a month and we work directly with our chart, our energy, and how we are responding to what is already unfolding. This is a penta structure, 5 people only, and I facilitate it. Human design also carries a deep mathematical structure, and it gave me a way to understand time cycles in a very embodied way. It connects directly to the I Ching, the hexagrams, and the ancient Taoist cosmology that I studied with a master for 12 years while I was living in New York. 2027 is approaching. The cross of planning is closing, and this becomes a space to actually feel how you are moving within that, how you relate to your own authority, how do you engage with all of this in a way that feels supportive and aligned. The cross of planning uses logic through institutions, and that is what is dissolving. I describe logic as something I arrive at through my own experience as an internal coherence. I've done the work of integrating my emotional field, my timing, and my body awareness. And from that place, when I engage with others, I use logic so that what I say lands clearly and carries direction. The cross of planning placed logic outside of us, and now I experience it as something that moves through me. Because when emotion moves too quickly, it can take over the moment. And I have learned to stay with it long enough so that when I speak, what comes through is organized and connected to what is actually happening. Emotion is alive through signal, logic becomes language, and through action, we shape our destiny. We are entering the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and this is a whole individual realm we will need to tap into in the near future. And of course, I continue doing one-on-one readings for anyone who needs support. I don't usually speak about this here, but it feels right to open it right now. I've written my first book, and the second one has taken time because I needed to understand many things more deeply, and now I do. So I'm putting my energy into bringing that forward as well. As I close this, I'm becoming very aware of which parts of myself I have already let go of, which parts have dissolved into the ether, and who am I actually taking with me? Trusting the unknown by being wild, by being funny, by being silly, being curious, and mostly by being loved. there's an image there. The last image I received during this meditation, just look back. If you're listening to me, just look at the image anyway. This last image I received during a meditation a couple of days ago. In it, I asked my father, who died when I was 8. Since then, it's rather unusual to tap into this energy, but it's something that I've been slowly making space for. So I was able to connect to him and I asked him, hey, can you tell me more about our ancestors? We were in a library setup, which was his favorite place, surrounded by lots of books. I thought he was going to show me a book or something, but he just pointed up and said, your ancestors are the light. And then I just felt so much love. Have a creative week. Bye-bye.